Now in this session we're going to get into more of the practical aspects of connecting with people through common conversation and then having spiritual conversations with people. One of the hardest things that we struggle with when it comes to evangelism is not so much the content of the gospel or talking about spiritual things, but how do I start? How do I get going? What do I say? And so we're going to look at launching into a gospel conversation. For a lot of us, we can struggle with this. And it's really important to note that having conversations with people is not something that you're gifted to do or you're born to do. These are natural skills that we learn as we grow up through our families and just in our social interactions at school. And some of us pick up these skills a lot easier than others. So being able to share with people, being able to have a conversation with people is not just for a few gifted extroverts. These are principles. What we're going to cover are principles that can unlock the ability to have a conversation about anything with anyone. And we're going to focus on a couple of aspects. The first aspect is we're going to focus on people that we might meet in a social setting or family members where you can't just go cold turkey evangelism, are you going to heaven or hell? Because it's just a little bit inappropriate and awkward. So we're going to cover how do we actually engage people with conversation and how we can turn those conversations into talking about spiritual things. And the second aspect we will look at is how to actually have a spiritual conversation right from the get-go. How can we approach someone, whether it's on the streets, whether it's going door to door, whether it's at church, wherever it is, how to actually just start a spiritual conversation right from the get-go. So that's so that we can lead into being able to share our story and the gospel. So that's where we're going to go. So first of all, with any conversation, you need to start with common conversation. This is really important. And we can do this to varying degrees of success. For example, when we meet someone that we haven't met before, we talk about the weather, who are they, where they're from, what they do. These are things that are common to everybody. The most talked about topics are like sports, religion, and politics. Now, those can be controversial, yes, but they're like common conversations, things that we all have in common. So this is what we're going to do. How can we take common conversation and get to know someone, form a connection with someone that as we go away from them, even though we might have only had a 10, 15, 20 minute conversation, they feel that there is a connection between us and they feel that we care about them and they know us and trust us. So, first of all, what you need to do is when you're having any conversations, you need to use and remember the name of the person that you're speaking to. I don't know about you, but I really struggle with this. People come up to me and they will say, "Hey Jeremy, how's it going?" And because I talk to so many people on a regular basis, it's not uncommon for me to not remember their name. And I'm like freaking out on the inside, trying to remember who they are because they obviously know me. And it's not because I didn't care about them or don't care for them, it's just that I don't find remembering names easy. So something that's helped me to remember a person's name when I'm in conversation with them is to get them to say their name as soon as possible, because it kind of comes awkward after half an hour into a conversation and you're like, "Oh, by the way, what's your name?" It doesn't really work too well. So try and find out their name and use it immediately. If you use it immediately within your first sentence and then keep using it a few times, what that does is it means that it gets in your mind and you've generally got it. You know, wouldn't it be sad if you were speaking to a person at church and you never met them before, and they introduced themselves, or you introduced yourself to them, you found out their name, you had a conversation with them, and they might not be a Christian, you might have shared the gospel with them, you might have prayed for them, and by the end of it you don't know what their name is, or you've forgotten their name. It's kind of a little bit embarrassing. You go to pray for them. I pray for, what's your name again? Sorry. It's kind of a little bit awkward. So if you find out their name and use it in the conversation, I find if you use it, you don't lose it. But if you don't use it, you'll lose it every time. Well, that's happens with me. So learn the name of the person you're speaking to and use it often. Sometimes it's easier to remember some names better than others because there might be a distinguishing character that helps you to remember who that person is, but often it is really hard. Also, you need to make sure that you listen carefully. This is really important because when you're having conversation with people, particularly if you want to share the gospel with them, sometimes we're so consumed in our minds about what to say next, we're not really listening to them. We're only really listening to give them an answer. And so we need to listen carefully because one, God's given us 2 ears and 1 mouth, and I think that we should use them in that proportion, but often the words of their lips reveal what's going on in their heart. And if we're listening to them, one, it shows that we care, and 2, there might be keys through what they say or how they say it that indicates something is going on that they haven't mentioned to us, but they've given us hints. And if we're listening to them, we can often bring that up. I was talking to this one lady, and as I started talking to her, she was quite buoyant and quite passionate. We're having a really good conversation. We're talking about spiritual things. And then when we started talking about what love was, her whole demeanour changed, and there was just something subtle. And because I was listening to her, I was able to pick up on it. And so I asked her if there was anything, if she was struggling with anything in that area. And she went quiet for quite some time. And I really wanted to say something, but I felt like I shouldn't because she was quiet and something was going on the inside. I just wanted to let her to share with me what was going on in her time. And she confessed to me how she had someone close to her just commit suicide. And so she was struggling with a whole bunch of things to do about that. Love, God, all of those things. And I was able to sort of minister, God was able to use me to minister to her love and His compassion in that circumstance. But if I wasn't listening to her and only thinking about how to answer her, I could have missed out on that opportunity. So listening is very careful. So how do we learn to listen? Well, to be a good listener, first of all, you need to look at them. Now, culturally, there's all sorts of differences. Within Polynesian culture, you don't directly eyeball people or look at people because that can be very confrontational and inappropriate. When you're in a European setting, looking at people is really important. So you have to be mindful of the cultural differences of the people that you're speaking to. But you need to look at them. Because when you look at them, you show that you're engaged with them. You don't have to kind of like eyeball them as in, because that's just weird. But you need to look at them and show that you're engaged. If you were talking to me and I was kind of just looking around like this, what would you think? You would think that I don't care about what you say. You would think that I am bored. You would think a whole lot of things. It's really important to make sure that you look at them so that they can see that you're engaged. And it helps you to listen and not be distracted about the things that are around about you. You also need to show visual approval. This is important because communication is more than just what we say. It's our body language as well. So sometimes, leaning a little bit in forward as they're talking to you shows that you're deeply engaged. Instead of having your arms folded, have them open, because this is kind of like a defensive posture. Well, for me, this is like really relaxing. It's like, because what do I do with my hands if I'm not talking? Because I tend to have helicopter hands when I speak. But so like folding them is just something to do. But this is sort of like a defensive pose. I'm closed off to you. So what you do with your hands, what you do with your body language. So we need to show visual approval. If you do this all the time, as someone's talking, and you're looking at your watch, what is that communicating? Because remember, communication is more than just what we say. And the third thing when it comes to being a good listener is verbal approval. So being like a sounding board, or nodding is an approval thing, which is a visual thing, but a verbal one is like, you can sympathize with them. You can show appreciation for them taking the time to share that. You can rephrase what they say, so to make sure that you're actually on the same page and you're clarifying what they're saying. These help you to stay engaged with the person, and they help the person to feel loved and secure and safe as they're sharing what's on their heart. It's really important to note that when it comes to effective communication, only 7% of effective communication is with our words. That's all. We place so much emphasis on our words that we forget about the other aspects of communication. Because 38% is your tone of voice. See, I could say I love you, or I could go to my wife and say I love her, because I do love her. But imagine if I used the wrong tone of voice and I said, I love you! Would that really communicate I love her? She'd probably be like, why are you angry with me? Why are you yelling at me? So it's not just the words we say, it's the way we say it. I remember being in the open air, and one of my fellow evangelists was preaching, and he was preaching about the crucifixion. And he's a passionate guy, great communicator. But this one time, he got sort of so worked up. This non-Christian came and stood next to me and says, why, he's talking about the love of God, why is he so angry? And because communication is more than just what you say, it's how you say it, it's your tone of voice. And so we need to make sure that if we want to be effective in our communication, we not only say the right things, but we have it in the right tone. Someone said if you're going to be speaking about heaven, or if you're going to be speaking about hell particularly, make sure that you've got a tear running down your cheek. Not a literal tear, but it's got to hurt your heart. You've got to have some compassion, because this is a sad thing. And so 7% of effective communication is our words, 38% is our tone of voice, and 55% is non-verbal. It's our body language. It's what we do with our ears and our eyebrows and our hands and our face. And so we're actually communicating all the time without actually saying anything. I remember one of our trainees when we were out in the open air, and she was talking about God's love and how Jesus died for the audience on the cross. And she kept going like this. She's like, oh, Jesus loves you so much. And she was quite a stocky lady. And every time she went like this, after a while, it gave the impression that, Jesus loves you. What's she doing with her fists and hands? Like, we're going to have a punch up here if you're not going to agree with me. And so she was only doing it because she was nervous. She didn't even realise she was doing it. I am often like a caged lion. I can be left, I go prancing right, and I'm all over the place because it's a nervous thing, and that's just my nerves out working in my body. But sometimes the things that we do that are non-verbal can actually hinder what we're trying to say or counter what we are saying. So make sure that when you are speaking, your body and your tone of voice are confirming the message that you're trying to communicate. So if you want to engage in conversations, you not only need to be a good listener, but you need to ask good questions. What are some good questions that you can ask? Well, first of all, you need to have fat questions, not skinny questions. So a fat question is like an open-ended question. It's a question where it's very hard to give a one-word answer. Or it's a question where it's very hard to give a yes/no. So, for example, a skinny question would be, do you believe in God? And the answer would be, yes, no, not sure. And that's a good question to ask, but it's quite limited because that means you have to have other questions lined up in your mind to ask depending on what they say. But another way you can do it, if you want to turn that question into a fat question, what you can do is instead of saying, do you believe in God? You could say something like, what do you think God is like? Now, you can't say yes or no, but what that does, it engages their mind and they begin to think automatically, what is God like to me? And that gives them the permission to explain to you, if they want, exactly their understanding of God. So that's an example of a fat question. A skinny question is, I've got kids and one of them's still at school, and after school see them, question us, how was your day? And you know what they say? Good. And it's like, that is a skinny question, how was your day? Because it's kind of like a one-word answer. So I cottoned on to this, and really they didn't really want to tell me all about their day because they just finished school and they just need a break. And so instead of saying, how was your day? I'd say, tell me what your day was like. And so they can't just say good. They've got to give me some details because that's what I really want to know. I want to know how was their day because I want to know what they got up to, struggles, some of the good things, some of the bad things. And so how was your day? I only ever got good. So what was your day like? Tell me about how your day went. And after a while, they would just say, Dad, nothing bad happened today. It was a good day. Because they didn't want to talk to me. But, open-ended questions is really important. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do something a bit weird. And it's going to make no sense to start off with, but it'll be amazing. We're going to go over some principles to enable us to have to communicate with anybody about anything. So you ready for this? Okay. First of all, we need to remember the conversational stack. So, okay, what I want you to do is I want you to stand up out of your chair, and I just want you to do what I do and repeat after me. Okay, so everybody ready? Okay, so put your hands up like this. We have a huge nameplate. Everybody got that? Okay, so what we do is we've got a huge nameplate. So imagine you've got a nameplate of the car. It's a huge one. Alright, so this is really good. This is what you pay your big bucks for. So on top of the huge nameplate, we have a house. Yep. Alrighty, so let's start from the start. We have a huge nameplate. Alrighty, make sure when you're doing this, we have a huge nameplate. And on top of the nameplate, we have a house. Now, in front of the house is a family. I know that you think I'm weird, but just hang in with me. Now, the family are holding on to a clock. Now, in the hour hand of the clock is coming off it is an aeroplane. So let's do those actions again. Alrighty, we have a huge nameplate. On top of the nameplate, we have a house. That's right. In front of the house, we have a family. The family are holding a clock. Okay, the hour hand of the clock coming out is a aeroplane. Now, the propeller of the aeroplane is a tennis racket. Okay, stay with me, a tennis racket. And screwed into the tennis racket is a light bulb. Okay, so let's just do these. This is the conversational areas. These are the things that will help you to have a conversation with anybody about anything. Alrighty, I know that you're a skeptic, but just stay with me. So let's just go through those actions again. Okay, we have a huge nameplate. On top of the nameplate, what do we have? We have a house. In front of the house, we have a family. The family are holding a clock. Now, the hour hand of the clock is a aeroplane. Now, the propeller of the aeroplane, what is that? It's a tennis racket. And screwed into the tennis racket is a light bulb. Excellent. So, since you've got that, you can talk to anybody about anything. But let me explain what that means. So, I'll just put that on the screen, those pictures for you to write down. Okay, so the huge number plate reminds us that the question that we ask is, what is your name? Huge nameplate, what is your name? And then in your conversation you say it. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to create word pictures to help us remember important questions to ask that can help us to connect with people. So we have a huge nameplate and we say, what is your name? So remember what's on top of the number plate is a house. And that is, where are you from? Because we don't just assume things, they might not be from here. Particularly if they look a little bit different than what you look like, and you might be a natural Kiwi. So where are you from? And see how these are open-ended questions. So I can say, where are you from? It's like, well, I might not live here. Well, I might live here, but I might identify with a different place. So we have a huge nameplate. What is your name? We have a house. Where are you from? In front of the house is a family. That's right. And this is, tell me about your family. See, some people, the most important thing in their lives is not what they do, is not their occupation or their sporting achievements, but it's their family. I come from a Māori background, and so the most important thing is whakapapa. And so my family is more important to me than my job or my career path. And so what you're doing is these are the base questions that help us to find out what's important to a person, gives us background information. And it means that we can talk about things that are important to them, rather than just talking about things that are important to us. And because they're open-ended questions, it gives them permission to say as much as they want or as little as they want. For example, we've all got a family, but we might not be married. Tell me about your family. Oh, my nan's from this place, I've got 2 brothers, I've got 3 sisters. If you say, oh, are you married? And they say no, that can be kind of awkward. So tell me about your family. You know, or do you have a family? No. Oh, that's a bit awkward. Tell me about your family. So that means that you can actually do different, you can talk about it on their level instead of you railroading the conversation. So we have, we have a clock. What do you do for your time? So, you know, what do you do with your time? Instead of, have you got a job? No. Well, that's a bit awkward. What do you do with your time? Oh, I work for the government playing PlayStation because I'm unemployed or I'm a student. They can say as much information or as little information as they want. So the hour hand is aeroplane. Where have you travelled? You don't just say, have you travelled overseas, because they might not have. Again, you say, where have you travelled? They could have travelled around the North Island. They could have travelled to the beach. It's up to them to share where the places that they've travelled. Now, the propeller is a tennis racket. What do you do for relaxation? Not everybody's involved in sport or likes sport. Don't know why, but so, you know, what do they do for relaxation? And the light bulb is the ideas. What are your ideas? What are your opinions? What do you think about current events or things that you're talking about? For example, what do you think about coronavirus? What do you think is the best solution for this thing? What do you think about all the media? What do you think about all the fight? What are your ideas about whatever you're talking about? And the light bulb can be put in at any situation. So let's go through the conversational stack again, because it only becomes useful to us when we remember what the questions are. And remember, the pictures and the actions will help us to remember what question to ask. So let's start from the start. We have a huge nameplate, which the question reminds us, what's the question that we should say with that? What is your name? Exactly. So that's why we will do it. So on top of the nameplate, we have a house. Where are you from? In front of the house we have a family. Tell me about your family. The family are holding a clock. What do you do with your time? The hour hand of the clock is a aeroplane. Where have you travelled? And the propeller of the aeroplane is a tennis racket. What do you do for relaxation? And screwed into the tennis racket is a light bulb. What are your thoughts and opinions of that? So this is going to be quite difficult because we're online. Because normally in class we would break up into pairs and we would go over the actions and the questions with each other. So I want you to pause the video and I want you to find someone that you can go and practice the signs with your hands and the questions with someone so that you can get it locked in the memory. So it can help you when you're in a conversational situation with someone you either met for the first time or you might know but you don't know them that well. Okay. Excellent. So, since you've been going through those signs, let's all go through it together. We have a huge... That's right. And so what's the question? Excellent. So you need to fill in the blanks. On top of the nameplate we have a... And the question is... Excellent. In front of the house we have a... The question... Excellent. The family are holding a... The question... Out of the hour hand, there is a... And the question, the propeller of the plane is a... What is the question? Screwed into the propeller is a... What is the question? Excellent. So what you need to do is you need to find, within the next week, you want to find 3 people where you can actually have a conversation with someone you don't know. And you'll go through these questions, the conversational stack with them. And the idea is you want to have at least a 5-minute conversation with them. And you want to be able to find out as much as you can about them. If you don't use these skills, you'll never develop them. You'll lose them. And these are the things that can help us have a conversation with anybody about anything. Now, these 7 questions are the foundation. We can only get so far of tell me about your family. Because, what do you say next? So you've got to remember to use, when you're in conversation, you've got to remember to use the conversational expanders. So for example, you have the who, the what, the where, the when, the why, and the how. So tell me about your family. The person begins to tell you about they're married with kids. And you could say, oh, when did you get married? Where did you get married? Where have you travelled? They talk about, I went to the South Island. So where did you go? Why did you go there? What was the purpose of your trip? What did you like about the South Island that is different from the North Island? You see how the conversational expanders kind of help the conversation to go deeper, at a deeper level than just, what do you do with your time? Oh, I'm a truck driver. Oh, so how did you become a truck driver? What do you like about truck driving? How long have you been a truck driver? Where do you go in your truck driving route? What do you carry? What are some of the challenges that you're facing as a truck driver? So that's just a question, that's just something that came off the top of my head. But you see how the conversational expanders expand the conversation? They help go deeper. And that's what you want to go. You want to go from a surface, how are you? How's the weather? Yeah, it's good, eh? To being able to actually connect with people on a deeper level. Get to know them as people. Because they're important. They've been created in the image of God. And so we should show them that they're important by caring enough to take the time to find out who these people really are. You can use these things in church with people that you know. Conversational expanders. You'll get to know things about them that you never knew. And it'll blow your mind. So what you need to do is find a partner, practice the conversational stack, and use the conversational expanders. This way, that'll help you to prepare yourself for creating deep conversations that connect people heart to heart. But if you don't practice these things, when you go to do it, your mind can just go blank, because we always do the things that we practice. So make sure that you practice. So we go from our conversational stack, the 7 basic questions. We use our expanders, but then we want to move into the ministry areas. So we're going to do a few more actions to help us to remember. So we'll start with the light bulb. So screwed into the tennis racket is a light bulb. Now, on top of the light bulb is a chicken for Christmas. That's right, it's a chicken for Christmas, not a turkey, not a pork, it's a chicken for Christmas. And the steam coming from the chicken for Christmas are like dreamy goalposts. So on the light bulb we have a chicken for Christmas. And in the steam coming up from the chicken for Christmas, we have a dreamy goalposts. And on top of the goalposts, we have a trophy. Okay, now I know you're probably thinking what a lunatic I am, but let me explain what this means. So for the chicken for Christmas, it is, what are your challenges, frustrations, and concerns? The CFC. What are your challenges, frustrations, and concerns? Oh, you've got 2 children. So what are your biggest challenges as a single parent raising 2 teenage boys? What are your concerns about their future? What is your frustration? What are some of your frustrations as a truck driver at work? When you're overseas in Dunedin, when you're in Christchurch in the South Island, what was the biggest challenge that you had there? Or if you're in India, or wherever you were, what are some of the differences? What are some of the challenges that you had that you don't normally have in New Zealand? So these help, again, they help you to go deeper in the conversation. Then we have a chicken for Christmas, and then in the steam, what's that? The dreamy goalposts. So what are your dreams and goals? So if family is the most important thing, so what would you like to see your kids achieve in life? What are some of your dreams and goals? I remember when I was growing up, when I was a teenager, there was this ad, and it was like they were interviewing all these little kids, about 7, 8-year-old kids, and they're like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And some will be like, I want to be a princess. And some were like, I want to be an All Black, and I want to be a fireman, and I want to be a police officer. Nobody said, I want to be on the dole or anything like that, but they had all these dreams. And then they interviewed them when they were like 15, and half of them were like, I want to be a police officer, I want to be the Prime Minister. And then some of them were like, I don't know. And then when they were interviewed when they were 20, and a lot of them had lost their dreams. We've all got dreams. We've all got goals. And sometimes the pressures of life can choke them out, and we can get discouraged. And so asking about these things are really important in terms of their job. What would you like to achieve in your job? Apart from getting paid, because obviously that's partly why you do it. What would you like to see? What would you like to see your kids become? What kind of people do you want them to become? So these kind of questions help. They help find ways for us to connect with them in a way that we can minister to them. Because as Christians, we can encourage them in that. We can pray for them in those things. We can, we can spur them on because those things are really important. And so we have a chicken for Christmas, and then we have dreamy goalposts. So chicken for Christmas is, what are your frustrations, challenges, and concerns? Challenges, frustrations, and concerns. And then we have the dreamy goalpost, and that is, what are your dreams and goals? And on top of the goalpost, we have a trophy. And this talks about, what are your achievements? What are your achievements? Because it's important to encourage people and rejoice with people when they do some good things. Often when we hear about someone doing something good, we come straight back at them and tell them the good things that we achieved it. And while there's nothing inherently wrong with that, but shouldn't we give them the moment? Shouldn't we be an encouragement to them and just let them bask in that and encourage them in that? Because that is something that's important to them. And if it's important to them, it needs to be important to us. So, it's really important, as you're having conversation with people, that you wait patiently for an answer. Because I don't know about you, but if someone came up and asked me, what is your biggest challenge in working with OAC, the ministry I'm involved in, I haven't necessarily been thinking about that at that time. And so I need a minute to think about it, because you've caught me off guard. So don't be afraid of silence. Let them think. Sometimes we get a little bit, how should I put it? We get a little bit panicky when there's silence. And so then we'll ask about 3 or 4 other questions just to try and get them to say something. But that's not always helpful. So when you ask a question, don't say anything more, don't ask several questions straight after that. Give them time to think and answer. Wait patiently for an answer. A little bit of silence is good. So, what I want you to do is I want you to practice all the way up until trophy. And pause the video, and then when you've gone through that twice, then you can press play again. Excellent. So our last section of the conversational stack is responding to others in an affirming way. There are 2 rules here. First of all, don't criticize, condemn, or complain. This is important. They are sharing something about their life with you. Even if it's wrong, do not condemn them and do not be critical of them. Show appreciation for what they've shared with you, because they didn't have to share it with you, and they don't have to continue to have a conversation with you. So, thank them for sharing with you. You don't have to agree to affirm someone. Hey, I really appreciate you taking the time to share that with me. They might share a little bit about their belief system with you. That's against the Bible. Don't just go straight in there and say, oh, this is wrong because the Bible says this, this, this. what you can do is say, hey, look, I appreciate you taking the time to explain that to me. You've just affirmed them, and you haven't agreed with what they have said. And then you can talk about some of the things that you've learned, and you can show them through conversation and through just general relationship, what you've found to be true. But so often we're quick to be critical or condemn something that we don't agree with, without actually affirming a person and showing appreciation for them to actually open up to us. And the second thing is be honest and show sincere appreciation. And it is important to be honest, because you don't want to just, that's so true. You don't want to agree with something that's not right. But you can show appreciation. So you have to be honest, but with compassion and gentleness. So think about a compliment pattern. P-A-T, pat. You don't want to pat them on the head. You don't want to pat them around the face. But I don't know about you, but we all need encouragement. And if the person you're talking to doesn't know Christ, how much more encouragement do they need? One, so that they can see the love of God. And two, because they have to live their life on their own. They're a slave to their own desires and emotions. They're a slave to their sin. We have Christ helping us, encouraging us. But they have nothing. So we need to be a people of encouragement, because that's a loving thing to do. So Pat, first of all, the highest form of compliment is when you compliment someone's personality or character traits that you see. Always be on the lookout for things that you can compliment people for. Remember, I was going door to door, and as I was walking up, there was like fish heads and bones and leftovers like at the front of the front entrance, and it was disgusting. And it's like, where am I going to find something to compliment? How am I going to compliment this person? Because it was a very nice environment to be in, and it was their environment. Thinking, I really appreciate the way you use your front door as a tip. That's not really a compliment. And they opened the door, and I could see all these photos of their whānau. And so I was able to compliment them on how they keep priorities. That people are more important than things. And they're just bright, all the defences went down. Because for so many people, their work and money and things are more important than people that are created in the image of God. And so look for something. In your conversation, as you're talking, some people say things like, I'm a real honest person. Whether they're really honest or not, you don't really know, but that's something to compliment them on. It's so good to come across people that value honesty and truth. So many people, will only be honest if it suits them and gets them further. So good to meet people that have great values in their life. You've just built them up. You've just broken down the walls. You've just connected with them on an emotional level and encouraged them. So their personality, their character traits. A stands for accomplishments. Through your conversation, you'll find out things that they've been able to accomplish in life, hurdles they've been able to overcome. Show appreciation for that. Compliment them on that. And the last thing, which is the lowest form of compliments, is things. I like your Ferrari. Can I have a drive? Things. Flattery gets you nowhere. And people can tell if you're genuine or not. But if you're giving a compliment to do with their character, they're going to see that as genuine, because that's the kind of person they want to be. And really, in New Zealand, we're quick to criticise and pull down, but we're not very good at building up and encouraging. And the scriptures command us as Christians, particularly as Christians one to another, that we are to encourage and build up one another daily. And we are to do that to non-Christians as well, because they need to see the love of God practiced in our lives. So I think I might have got it wrong. This is the last section. So let's go from the chicken for Christmas. Yeah, so this is the last section that we go. Screwed into the tennis racket is a light bulb. What are your thoughts and opinions about? On top of the light bulb, we have our chicken for Christmas. What are your challenges, frustrations, and concerns? From the chicken for Christmas, we have dreamy goalposts. What are your dreams and goals? And on top of the goalposts, we have our trophy. What are your achievements? Now, coming out of the trophy is a bunch of flowers. Yes, that's right. A bunch of flowers. Now, as we peer into the flowers, we see a drowning man crying for help. It's not a woman, it's a man, because only a man would get be drowning in a bunch of flowers. So on the top of the goalpost, we have the trophy. Trophy is, what are your achievements? Now, coming out of the trophy is a bunch of flowers. Now, as we look down in the flowers, we see a man drowning, crying for help. And then above the man drowning, we see praying hands. So what does that mean? That the bunch of flowers, so out of the trophy we have a bunch of flowers. So the flowers stand for affirm, affirm, affirm. Always be on the lookout to show and give encouragement, show affirmation. So affirm, affirm, affirm. So when we look in the flowers, what do we see? We see a man drowning, crying for help. The question we ask is, how can I help? Sometimes as we connect with people, there'll be things that they need. Now you might not be able to meet that need, but you can ask, how can I help? Is there any way I can help? You're not promising to help, but you're finding out if there are any needs, and so that you can have a further opportunity to help them. And then if they say something, I remember I was talking to a homeless man, and his life was falling apart, and I said, how can I help? And he needed a place to live. He needed to sort some stuff out with Wins. Now, I wasn't in a position to invite him into my home because my home was pretty full at that stage. So I said, look, I can't promise anything, but what I'll do is I'll see if I can sort something out. And so he was living on the streets, so I knew whereabouts he was living. He didn't have a cell phone. And I went and made some calls, and I managed to find a place for him to stay. And so it gave him living. So I was able to sort that out. And then that person who opened up their house went and helped them sort out his Wins things. So I didn't promise that I'd help him, but how can I help you? I'll see what I can do. Because sometimes we don't have the necessary means to help someone. But that's okay. Because we're offering shows love and compassion. And so how can I help? Now, above the man drowning, there are what? Praying hands. 10-second prayer. When you've had a conversation with someone, then before you go, offer to pray for them. And if you cut out all the religious words and the jargon that we use, we can actually say a lot in 10 seconds. And bring God into the situation. And God can answer your prayers for them. And they can see God at work. Why is it that when we have conversations with Christians, have conversations with non-Christians, we don't ask, can I pray for you? One of the greatest things we can do is pray for someone, but yet we don't offer and we don't pray for people. Because when we offer, can I pray for you? It brings God into the situation. And God is able to move. And God is able to do more than we can. And so let's be looking for opportunities after every conversation to bring God into the situation. They've talked about a struggle. Why can't you can pray about that struggle and God can answer your prayer and they can see that God is real because He's answered your prayer. You can show the reality of God. You can show the power of God just by a quick 10-second prayer with people. So, that's the end of our stack. This is the stack. So what you need to do is you need to practice this. Normally we do it in class, but because you're not here, we can't do it in class, so that it can become familiar to you. But if you do not practice this, you will not remember it when it comes to have conversations. You'll be like, oh, what was that question again? Oh, what do I say? Oh, I can't remember. But remember, the actions help you to remember what the question is. I remember when I was first learning this, I'd be like, oh yeah, so what do you do for relaxation? Kind of looks weird, but they don't really notice, and it just helps you to remember what question it is. Chicken for Christmas. Also, you've been married 50 years. What are the biggest challenges you've had? Oh, your husband. So you can connect in a deeper level. Using the conversational stack doesn't mean that you've shared the gospel, but what it means is that you've connected with someone emotionally. And often when you connect with someone in natural conversations, it can naturally lead to a gospel conversation. And sometimes you need a little push. And so in our next session, we're going to look at briefly how to turn a conversation into a spiritual conversation, to talk about spiritual things, because up until now we've just talked about natural things that are important to us. And while it can be easy to naturally transition to gospel conversations, sometimes it's a little bit harder. And so we need to be thinking about how can I actively transition the conversation I'm having about our family to a spiritual topic. Alrighty, so I'll see you at our next session.